stand alone now. The voices that once surrounded you have faded into distance. Those who promised loyalty have vanished without explanation. Friends who once shared laughter have become silent strangers. Colleagues who once stood beside you now avoid your presence. The circle that once felt permanent dissolved with surprising speed, scattering like ash carried by wind. This moment feels like a form of death. Not the death of the body, but the death of illusions. The illusion that loyalty is permanent. The illusion that shared history guarantees shared future. The illusion that people remain when circumstances change. Centuries ago in Florence, during the brutal games of Renaissance politics, a political observer watched the same drama unfold again and again. Men climbed toward power carried by alliances and friendships. Yet the moment fortune shifted, those same allies abandoned them. Loyalty evaporated when advantage disappeared. He understood something the comfortable world prefers not to see. Human loyalty is rarely unconditional. It functions like a ledger. People remain while the relationship serves their interests. When the calculation changes, presence disappears with it. This truth forms the foundation of power. The question now confronting you is simple and brutal. How does someone win when everyone turns away? The answer begins with two minds that refuse to lie about reality. One dissected power with surgical precision. The other demanded that individuals create meaning out of chaos. Both experienced abandonment themselves. Both transformed that abandonment into intellectual dominance that still shapes thought centuries later. Their experiences reveal something essential. Isolation is not merely loss. Isolation is revelation. When the noise of approval disappears, the structure of reality becomes visible. Most people never reach this clarity because they remain surrounded by comfortable illusions. They believe affection equals loyalty. They believe kindness guarantees reciprocity. They believe relationships operate according to moral promises. But when the crowd disappears, the mask falls away. What remains is the machinery of human nature. People are often guided by fear, advantage, and calculation. They attach themselves to individuals while the association benefits them. When those benefits vanish or become costly, the attachment dissolves. This does not mean every person acts with cruelty. It means most act according to interest. What you experienced was not sudden betrayal. It was the unveiling of conditions that were always present. The loyalty you believed existed was often an alignment of convenience. You provided something useful: status, support, validation, entertainment, opportunity. As long as that exchange remained balanced, the relationship endured. When the balance shifted, so did their presence. Ancient stories illustrate this pattern. When prosperity surrounds a person, companions gather easily. Yet when misfortune appears, those same companions begin to question the character of the fallen. The defeated individual becomes a danger to associate with. The crowd fears proximity to failure. Your shock at their departure reveals something important. It reveals the assumption that bonds were based on deeper principles than they truly were. True moral bonds strengthen when tested. Bonds built on interest collapse under pressure. Recognizing this difference marks the beginning of emotional strength. Power cannot be constructed on the unstable ground of affection. Affection changes like weather. It is unpredictable, dependent on forces outside your control. To understand how to move forward, one must distinguish between two forces governing existence. One represents chance, circumstance, the unpredictable events created by fate, environment, and the decisions of others. The other represents your personal capacity to act within those circumstances, your skill, your courage, your intelligence, your discipline. When people turn against you, the first force has revealed itself. Circumstances changed, their interests changed, their fears changed. You cannot control that. But the second force remains yours. Your ability to respond, your ability to build strength regardless of what others do. Your ability to develop qualities that allow you to navigate chaos instead of being destroyed by it. These qualities form the foundation of real power. Strategic awareness, adaptability, courage under pressure, discipline in the face of discomfort. Imagine a violent river that floods without warning. Those who expect calm forever are destroyed when the waters rise. But those who prepared barriers and channels during peaceful seasons survive the storm. Your abandonment is the flood. The question now is whether you built strength before it arrived, or whether you built your life entirely upon the approval of others. If your identity depended on their acceptance, the flood swept everything away. Now begins the only path that matters. The cultivation of inner strength that cannot be removed by changing alliances. There exists a famous idea often misunderstood. It suggests that if someone cannot be both loved and feared, it is safer to rely on fear. This statement is frequently mistaken as praise of cruelty. The deeper meaning is something else entirely. Love depends on the emotional condition of others. It exists outside your control. Fear arises from consistent demonstration of capability. It depends on what you can actually do. But even this contrast hides a deeper truth. The highest form of power depends on neither love nor fear. True strength emerges when your stability does not depend on the emotions of others at all. You develop abilities so substantial that approval or rejection becomes irrelevant to your foundation. Leadership requires this distance. The moment a leader requires approval from those around him, authority dissolves. If you require affection, the crowd owns you. Your abandonment exposed a dependency, a quiet reliance on external validation to confirm your worth. That dependency weakened you. Power requires eliminating it completely. Consider an ancient image of a Titan condemned to carry the weight of the heavens on his shoulders. He does not ask permission to bear the burden. He performs his task regardless of recognition. This image represents sovereignty, the ability to stand without needing applause. But strength alone is not enough. The individual capable of navigating reality combines two instincts. One is force, the courage to stand firm when challenged. The ability to intimidate through presence and determination. The other is intelligence, the ability to recognize traps, hidden motives, and complex dynamics within human relationships. Strength without awareness becomes reckless. Cleverness without strength becomes fragile. Together they create self-mastery. In your situation, the intelligent mind analyzes the real reasons people departed. Surface explanations rarely reveal truth. Did your growth make them uncomfortable? Did association with you become inconvenient? Did your evolution expose their stagnation? Understanding these causes prevents blindness in the future. The strong mind responds differently. It does not beg for reconciliation. It does not apologize for growth. It does not shrink itself to fit back into spaces that once required smaller versions of you. It simply stands and continues forward. Strength and clarity merge into emotional resilience. There is also a harsh lesson about severing harmful ties. When relationships drain energy and obstruct growth, they must be cut without hesitation. Cruelty applied strategically is not sadism, it is precision. The swift removal of poison from a wound. The alternative is slower and more destructive. Remaining trapped in harmful relationships out of guilt creates hidden resentment. That resentment damages both people involved. Decisive separation protects development. Most people avoid this step because they fear the pain of ending connections more than they value their own future. Strength requires reversing that priority. Your question must shift from avoiding discomfort to pursuing growth. Meanwhile, another philosopher observed a different phenomenon. Most humans behave like members of a herd. The herd survives through conformity. Similar beliefs, similar ambitions, similar limitations. Difference threatens that stability. When someone begins to evolve beyond the average boundaries of the group, tension emerges. Your growth becomes a mirror reflecting their stagnation. That mirror makes them uncomfortable. Instead of confronting their limitations, many choose the easier path. They remove the mirror, which means removing you. Their departure was not personal in the way you first imagined. It was instinctive self-protection. Your transformation forced them to confront choices they preferred to avoid. The herd rarely follows the path of exceptional development, because that path demands effort, risk, and responsibility. Remaining average requires none of those things, so they stay where they are, and you continue alone. When the crowd disappears and the noise fades, something uncomfortable becomes visible. Most people never truly stand alone long enough to see it. The machinery of human nature becomes clearer when you are no longer protected by comforting illusions. What feels like rejection is often the natural consequence of growth. When a person begins to change, the invisible agreements that once held relationships together begin to fracture. These agreements were never spoken aloud, yet everyone obeyed them. Stay familiar. Stay predictable. Stay within the shared limits of the group. The moment you step beyond those limits, the balance breaks. Your development becomes a disturbance. Your ambition becomes a threat. Your independence becomes a mirror reflecting what others have avoided becoming. And people rarely enjoy mirrors that reveal uncomfortable truths. Instead of confronting their own hesitation or fear, they redefine the situation. Your confidence becomes arrogance. Your ambition becomes selfishness. Your independence becomes betrayal. By redefining your growth as a flaw, they protect their own self-image. This psychological maneuver has existed for centuries. When people cannot rise to a challenge, they lower the value of the challenge itself. It allows them to remain where they are without feeling inferior. Understanding this mechanism prevents a dangerous mistake. You must not internalize their judgment. Their criticism is rarely objective. It is often defensive. Human beings construct moral narratives to protect their sense of identity. When confronted with someone whose evolution exposes their stagnation, they rewrite the story. The one who grows becomes the villain. The one who remains the same becomes virtuous. But the deeper conflict is not about morality. It is about power. Some individuals operate according to a moral structure born from insecurity. In this structure, anything that threatens stability becomes labeled as wrong. Strength becomes dangerous. Independence becomes suspicious. Excellence becomes offensive. In such environments, mediocrity becomes the safest identity. Those who embody ambition or transformation disturb the equilibrium of the group. The group reacts by pushing them out, not always consciously but instinctively. The purpose of this reaction is not cruelty. The purpose is preservation. Groups preserve stability the same way organisms preserve survival. Once you understand this, abandonment stops feeling like personal condemnation. It becomes predictable behavior. The crowd did not evaluate your potential and reject it. They reacted to the disruption your growth created in their psychological environment. This insight shifts responsibility away from bitterness. Their reaction reveals their limits, not your worth. But there is another danger hidden within abandonment. It is the temptation of resentment. Resentment begins quietly. At first, it appears justified. You remember the loyalty you offered. You remember the sacrifices you made. You remember the moments when you supported them while they were struggling. Now they are gone. The mind begins constructing a narrative of injustice. You imagine proving them wrong. You imagine returning stronger so they regret their decision. You imagine success becoming a weapon that humiliates them. This feeling is powerful because it transforms pain into motivation. But it carries a hidden cost. If your ambitions revolve around proving something to those who left, they still control your direction. They remain at the center of your psychological universe. Your actions may appear independent, but they are reactions to them. Resentment chains you to the very people you claim to have surpassed. Even if you achieve success, the foundation remains poisoned. Your victory becomes defined by their failure instead of your growth. True independence requires something more difficult. It requires removing them entirely from the equation. Your development must no longer revolve around demonstrating your worth to those who doubted it. It must revolve around the expansion of your own capabilities. Growth driven by resentment burns intensely but briefly. Growth driven by purpose endures. This distinction separates transformation from obsession. Resentment is reactive energy. Purpose is creative energy. The reactive mind waits for enemies. The creative mind builds regardless of opposition. Freedom begins the moment you no longer care whether those who abandoned you ever recognize their mistake, because their recognition no longer defines your direction. The universe itself does not distribute fairness. This realization often arrives painfully. Childhood teachings promise justice. Work hard and you will be rewarded. Be loyal and others will remain loyal. Be kind and the world will respond with kindness. Reality rarely operates so neatly. Events unfold according to power, circumstance, and human nature. Waiting for the world to balance itself in your favor wastes energy. Waiting for apologies wastes time. Waiting for vindication keeps you frozen in the past. When you release the expectation of fairness, something powerful happens. You stop behaving like a victim waiting for correction. You begin acting like a strategist shaping the future. Your attention shifts away from what others should have done toward what you can do next. That shift marks the beginning of genuine agency. Another truth emerges as well. Comfort is the quiet enemy of greatness. Comfort encourages repetition, familiar patterns, predictable thinking. It lulls people into believing the present state of life should remain unchanged. But transformation rarely occurs inside comfort. History demonstrates this repeatedly. Every meaningful achievement begins with departure from the familiar environment that once provided security. The moment comfort disappears, necessity appears. Necessity forces adaptation. Adaptation forces growth. Your abandonment removed the comfort that might have quietly limited you for years. The relationships that vanished offered belonging but also imposed invisible ceilings. Remain similar to us. Do not become too different. Do not change too much. Those ceilings disappear once the group disappears. Now the only remaining limits are your own. That freedom feels frightening at first, but it also contains enormous potential. Most individuals never experience such a moment. They remain surrounded by familiar approval until their ambitions fade. You have been forced into a harsher but more powerful environment. Isolation becomes a workshop. Inside that workshop, you begin constructing yourself deliberately rather than unconsciously. You examine every assumption about who you are supposed to be. You question the values you inherited from family, culture, or social expectation. Which beliefs genuinely belong to you? Which ones were adopted simply to maintain acceptance within the group? Few people ask these questions seriously because asking them risks social separation. You no longer carry that risk. The separation already happened. This gives you an opportunity that few possess. You can rebuild your identity intentionally. Start by examining every value guiding your life. Where did it originate? Did you choose it consciously, or did you absorb it without questioning? Some values will remain because they align with your authentic nature. Others will disappear because they were never yours to begin with. This process feels unsettling. It can make you appear unfamiliar even to yourself. But that discomfort is evidence of genuine transformation. Becoming someone new always requires letting the old identity dissolve. As this process unfolds, another shift begins. Loneliness slowly transforms into solitude. Loneliness means feeling incomplete without the presence of others. Solitude means recognizing the value of being alone with your own development. The difference lies entirely in perspective. If you view isolation as loss, it weakens you. If you view it as space for growth, it strengthens you. Your time alone becomes structured rather than empty. Physical discipline strengthens the body and builds resilience. Intellectual study sharpens perception. Creative work transforms internal thought into tangible form. Strategic planning directs energy toward long-term objectives. These practices gradually replace the need for constant social validation. The internal world becomes rich enough that external approval becomes optional. As this transformation deepens, something unexpected occurs. The people who left stop occupying space in your mind. Not because you forced yourself to forget them, but because your attention becomes absorbed by building the person you are becoming. Their absence created the silence necessary for that work. And in that silence, a different identity begins to emerge. One no longer defined by belonging to the crowd, but by mastery over oneself. When the noise of the crowd disappears completely, the final stage of transformation begins. At this stage, the question is no longer why people left. That question becomes irrelevant. The real question becomes who you are becoming without them. This is where true power forms. The first step is building capabilities that do not depend on anyone's approval. Your value must exist independently of social circles or shifting alliances. Skills become your foundation. Real competence, not reputation. Reputation is fragile because it depends on opinion. Competence is stable because it depends on reality. Ask yourself a brutal question. What can you actually do that creates value in the world? Not what people say you are good at. Not what once impressed friends, but what abilities remain even if you stand completely alone. Every weakness you identify becomes a direction for development. Strength is not discovered accidentally. It is built deliberately through repetition, discipline, and time. Economic independence becomes essential in this process. As long as survival depends on approval, freedom is impossible. When your livelihood depends on pleasing others, their opinion controls your behavior. The individual seeking sovereignty must reduce that vulnerability. Learn skills that generate income through your own effort and intelligence. When your survival does not rely on social acceptance, fear loses its grip. Physical capability also plays a deeper role than most people realize. A strong body produces psychological stability. Physical training builds endurance, discipline, and tolerance for discomfort. When you learn to push your body beyond limits, the mind follows. The person who knows they can endure physical strain becomes less intimidated by emotional hardship. Intellectual development sharpens perception. Study history. Study philosophy. Study strategy. When you understand how power and human behavior operate, your experiences stop feeling random. Patterns emerge. What once felt like chaos begins to reveal structure. Understanding these patterns prevents you from repeating mistakes. But capability alone does not complete the transformation. Another deeper process must occur. You must examine the values guiding your life. Most individuals live according to values they never chose. Beliefs inherited from parents, absorbed from culture, repeated by peers. These values may appear natural simply because they were never questioned. Your isolation provides the perfect moment to examine them. Write down the principles you claim to live by: honesty, loyalty, success, respect, ambition, security. Then ask a harder question. Where did each one originate? Did you choose it deliberately, or did you inherit it without awareness? Some values will remain because they genuinely resonate with who you are. Others will reveal themselves as borrowed expectations designed to maintain acceptance within a group. Discard what does not belong to you. The process may feel frightening because it risks separating you from familiar identities. But authenticity requires exactly that risk. You are no longer building a life designed to satisfy observers. You are constructing a life aligned with your own nature. Solitude becomes essential during this phase. Many people confuse solitude with loneliness. They treat isolation as evidence that something is missing. But solitude can also be possession rather than absence. It provides uninterrupted space for development. Inside solitude, you construct routines that strengthen you. Morning reflection clarifies your direction. Physical training builds discipline. Focused work develops skill. Evening study expands understanding. Creative expression transforms thought into reality. The goal is not recognition. The goal is transformation. As this structure solidifies, something remarkable happens. External validation becomes unnecessary. The internal world becomes rich enough to sustain itself. Another concept becomes important during this stage. It involves transforming your relationship with the past. Most individuals carry resentment toward painful events. They replay mistakes and losses repeatedly, wishing circumstances had unfolded differently. But wishing the past were different traps energy in conflict with reality. A more powerful perspective exists. Instead of asking why suffering occurred, ask what strength it made possible. Instead of rejecting the experience, incorporate it into your development. Loving your fate does not mean celebrating pain itself. It means recognizing that every difficulty contributed to the person you are becoming. This shift eliminates internal conflict. You stop fighting the past and begin using it. Each day becomes an opportunity for self-overcoming. The goal is simple but demanding. Become stronger than the person you were yesterday. Self-overcoming does not require dramatic gestures. It requires consistent expansion of your limits. If you run a certain distance today, run slightly farther tomorrow. If you understand a concept today, study it deeper tomorrow. If you fear something today, confront it gradually until fear disappears. Every small expansion becomes evidence of growth. Over time, the identity that once depended on approval dissolves completely. You become someone new. Eventually, signs appear that the transformation is real. The first sign is emotional neutrality toward those who left. You no longer feel anger or longing. Their departure becomes a simple fact of history. The second sign is independence. Your survival, direction, and emotional stability no longer rely on the presence of others. The third sign is clarity of values. You know exactly what you believe and why. Your decisions reflect principles you consciously chose. The fourth sign is acceptance of your life as it exists. Even painful events become part of a story you would not erase. The fifth sign is balance. You understand power dynamics in the world, yet you remain internally free from needing to dominate or impress others. These markers reveal a deeper transformation. You stop asking permission. You stop explaining yourself. Those who understand do not require explanation. Those who misunderstand cannot be convinced by it. You also stop seeking revenge. The desire for revenge keeps your mind tied to those who hurt you. Real freedom emerges when their actions no longer influence your direction. Recognition also loses importance. Whether they regret leaving or not becomes irrelevant. They no longer occupy space in your mental world. Instead, you operate from abundance. Your projects, ambitions, and ideas come from internal energy seeking expression. You become creative rather than reactive. This stage represents true independence, yet it requires constant maintenance. Without discipline, the mind can easily return to resentment or dependency. Continue developing strength. Continue practicing acceptance. Continue pushing beyond your previous limits. Over time, a paradox emerges. You win by no longer needing to win. Power appears the moment you stop chasing it. Connection becomes possible once you become complete in solitude. As long as their absence disturbs your peace, they maintain influence over you. But when their presence or absence changes nothing about your direction, their influence ends. This is not numb indifference. It is stability built through self-possession. Your capabilities become strong enough that changing circumstances cannot destroy you. Your identity becomes rooted deeply enough that rejection cannot redefine you. You become someone difficult to manipulate because approval and disapproval no longer control your actions. This independence may appear dangerous to those accustomed to controlling others through social pressure. But that danger is freedom. You now stand where many individuals throughout history stood when they lost everything familiar. Alone, stripped of illusions, facing reality without comforting stories. Yet within that moment lies immense possibility. The crowd left because you no longer fit inside their boundaries. They could not follow the direction you were beginning to move. Their departure was not proof of your failure. It was evidence of your evolution. Now a choice remains. You can shrink yourself until the old group accepts you again. You can apologize for becoming different. You can return to the safety of the herd. Or you can continue forward. Develop abilities that make you resilient regardless of who stays or leaves. Create meaning that does not depend on recognition. Build a life that you would choose again even if it repeated endlessly. That life belongs to someone who no longer requires permission to exist fully. Someone who understands both the harshness of reality and the freedom hidden inside it. Someone who has learned how to win alone. And that person is the one you are becoming now.